Welcome to my preview of the R&L Carrier New Orleans Bowl. This is going to be featuring 12-1, number 23, Louisiana, who's had just an incredible season this year, winning their conference, getting up to number 23, undefeated streak here, going 12 wins in a row after losing to Texas, going up against 7-5 Marshall, a team that usually is one of the top contenders here in the group of five, who hasn't necessarily had the season that they expected, but has still made it to a bowl game here. 7-5 Marshall at 9:15 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. Louisiana favored by 5 points, given a 58.2% chance of winning. Now, this is the first ever meeting between these two teams. We're seeing a trend of that in the bowl season this year. Plenty of teams, 4 or 5 at least in the 8 that I've previewed so far, that are meeting for the first time, and I'm sure that I'll find others as I go through the rest of the bowl season. So that's another thing. Make sure you like and subscribe. I'm previewing every team, every bowl game going through bowl season here. All right, so records overall, looking at these two teams versus what was predicted at the beginning of the year. So Athlon Sports and myself both projecting that Louisiana would have an 11-1 regular season record, and guess what? That's exactly what they did. So exactly right there on the dime. As far as Marshall, for me, not quite as good. I was expecting Marshall. I thought they'd be a surprise team this year. I know they didn't have the best season last year, or not necessarily going off of their standards, what they would have wanted to see. But I still expected them to have a pretty good year this year. They're, of course, going 7-3 last season. I still expected them to have a little bit of a better record this year. I was thinking they were going to go 11-1. I mean, they have a pretty easy schedule here. Really, besides Appalachian State, there's not really anyone on here that should have challenged them, and they ended up going 7-5. Now, Athlon Sports called this one exactly. They predicted a 7-5 record for Marshall in the regular season. So Athlon Sports was perfect on both of these. So I got to give credit where credit is due. As far as how they got to this point, well, worst loss overall for Louisiana, a loss to I have these two mixed up here. So worst loss for Marshall. Was probably to Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky bowl eligible team, a team that has had a very surprising turnaround of the season. 7 out of 9, won 7 out of their last 9 matchups here. But it was a big blowout, 21-53 against Western Kentucky. On the other hand, the only loss for Louisiana, not that it's a bad loss, it's a Power 5 team, and it's not a great Power 5 team in Texas, but still Texas. It's the blue blood of college football. 18-38 loss to Texas, and I think that's because at the beginning of the year, the first game of the season is always one of the hardest, trying to get into the flow of things. I think if these two teams were to meet up now, which of course Texas can't because they're not bowl eligible, lost to Kansas. But I think that if you looked at these two teams now playing each other, Louisiana would definitely beat Texas right now. However, it's just luck of the draw how things work at the beginning of the season. Best win for both these programs, definitely for Marshall, a 49-7 win against Navy, a game, the best win that against Navy really that any team had this season. They are one of only 3 teams in the nation to actually, Notre Dame, Air Force, and Marshall are the only teams in the nation to hold Navy to a single digit score. That the only 3. And Navy is a team that, well, yeah, they're 3-9. They didn't get to bowl eligibility. They just beat Army and they beat Cincinnati. So this is did not mean to say beat Cincinnati. They just beat Army, and they played Cincinnati really close and almost beat Cincinnati. Obviously, what I meant to say there. So they almost beat Cincinnati. They beat Army. This is a Navy team that, while not a good team, not consistently good, it was a struggle for most teams to get the big win against them, and Marshall went out and did it. So this is a Marshall team that can perform well against offenses that are tricky to cover, like Navy's is at times. Best win for Louisiana, App State. You're going to get them, not a lot of great opportunities to impress on their record, but they did get a win against App State here, 24-16 win there. App State team that went 10-3 in overall this season. So, top players of the game here for Louisiana is going to be. And I got to make sure I didn't switch these up because I thought the left column was for Louisiana and the right column was for Marshall. So let me just check something real quick here. Okay, yeah. So the top player of the game here for Louisiana is going to be their quarterback, Levi Lewis. 2,647 yards passing, 19 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's also a runner, 269 yards rushing, 5 touchdowns. So he is a big threat both in the passing game and in the running game. For Marshall, it's their quarterback, Grant Wells. He's a freshman. He has 3,433 yards passing, 16 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. Now, the 12 interceptions is a little worrying, but I think that's symptomatic of him being a freshman. The yardage shows his arm strength and his abilities. The interception shows that he's still developing into this game, developing the awareness, and learning when and when not to force a ball down the field. So keys to the game here for Louisiana: mess with the freshman's head. He's already shown the propensity to throw interceptions at times and to make the bad decisions. So mix it up with him. Get a blitz, blitz him. Throw him some complex packages, some things that you haven't really shown all season as far as coverage goes. Drop into the zone and then come back in on man. Try to mix it up throughout the game so that he's constantly having to second guess himself and can't get into a rhythm or really figure out this defense. It's going to be hard enough already as a freshman trying to diagnose this defense. So if Louisiana can put some pressure on them, they did a similar thing against my other team, Liberty, when they played them. If they can do that against this quarterback who is, like I said, a freshman who's shown the propensity to make some mistakes, even if he has a big arm, take away the deep threat and fluster him in the pocket, they're going to have success. As far as Marshall goes, take away the big plays. Louisiana, they're 12-1, and they have a pretty good conversion rate overall for their downs, like 44% or something like that. But Louisiana is not a consistent team overall. They win these games on big plays. They have a lot of drives stall out. I mean, if you watch them, and I've watched them multiple times this season, if you watch them play, they do not wear you down consistently throughout the game. What they do is they wear you down on big strike plays. So they'll have had 3 or 4 drives stall out, and then they'll get a big run on you, big run to the outside for 60 yards. They'll get a big play over the top, and they'll use that momentum to convert into scores. And then they'll be patient and wait, and then a big play over the top. So they'll lull you to sleep with some more routine, predictable offense, and then hit you with something that you're not expecting. If Marshall can take away the big play, they're going to be able to come down and stop this Louisiana team from getting a momentum. And I actually misspoke earlier. They're not very consistent on third down. 36% on third down completions. 36% on third down completions, but they are, and they're only completing 60% of their passes. Levi Lewis is only completing 60% of his passes right now. So that really shows right there the lack of consistency overall. But they get their yardage when you start to fall asleep on them or start to think that you've figured them out. They're going to hit you with something you're not expecting. So if they can stop the big play, Marshall has a great chance of being able to come in and get this upset. As far as my prediction in this one, I'm predicting that Louisiana breaks the trends that they've had so far this season. They're motivated in this game. This isn't necessarily the matchup that they wanted. 7-5 Marshall really isn't necessarily up to a 12-1 ranked Louisiana team. There's a lot of disappointment across the board for bowl season. Really one of the worst overall matchup selection I've ever seen for any bowl season. But I think Louisiana is motivated to prove that they are worthy of this ranking, the CFP ranking, to come into next season strong with a chance of maybe competing for that New Year's 6 spot. So I'm predicting that Louisiana breaks the trend here, jumps out to an early lead, and cruises to a late-night victory here against Marshall. Marshall, a team that's just really this is kind of a rebuild year for them, just after the way that they've played this season. Just lucky to get to a bowl game, and maybe they can adapt and get ready to play better next season. So predicting Louisiana with a win and then over on the over-under. All right, thank you for watching this video. Make sure you like and subscribe. Like I said, I'm going through all the bowl games this season. Like I say again, thank you for watching this video. As always, go Big Blue!